Well, hey there, YouTube. How's everybody doing out there today? Looks like we've made it to the weekend. We're kind of a transition day today here in South Alabama, getting some rain, getting some storms, and then we're probably getting our last cool spell of the year, or our last real cool spell of the year. So I'm happy about that. Today we're going to talk about how to lower blood pressure naturally with a plant-based diet. Um, you know, Blood pressure, people just kind of take that for granted in this day and age. I thankfully don't have to deal with it, but high blood pressure leads to stroke and coronary artery disease, heart attack, so it can kill you. I guess the medication is so good these days that you could, pretty much everybody of a certain age that I know takes blood pressure medication, but they don't really change their diet, and they just don't even know that they could probably get rid of that pill. Now, as I'm talking about things today about this, you still, no matter what your views on it are, you still want to, if you're on blood pressure medication, you want to take your medication. You want to take your medication exactly like your doctor tells you to. But there are things that you can do to go along with that, and you also probably, and we'll talk about this a little more, want to let your doctor know when you're making these dietary changes, because basically, you want to get away from the high-fat foods. It's about a low-fat, high-fiber, plant-based diet. Not just plant-based, but whole food plant-based, real foods, not the packaged stuff. Because fat increases the thickness or the viscosity of our blood, and if you can get that fat out, and the blood becomes thinner. Another culprit is you want to get away from the high-sodium foods. You want to get away from the high sodium foods, and you want to consume more of the high potassium foods, because sodium brings blood pressure up and potassium brings it back down. So, try to stay away from the fat, the salty, the processed. I was listening to a talk recently on blood pressure, and it's almost like some of these guys that are actually doctors. I've heard Dr. Neil Barnard talk about this, and he's the nicest guy in the world. The way he puts his information out, he's always kind of like, well, I know, do the best you can, but it's just like, I'm scratching my head. If somebody's like, this is a serious condition, you could die. If I had that and the doctor said, okay, you can only eat, he could give me the most stringent diet in the world, and I'm like, I got motivation. So that's just my way of thinking. I'm not like throwing any shade on people that find it hard or whatever, but it's just like life, feeling good, feeling not getting rid of this medication basically, and it's not that tough of a problem. In fact, some people have, you can see a decisive drop in blood pressure in 2 weeks, making the steps. I try to always listen closely when people are telling their stories, especially the people that tell you, well, I'm doing all this and nothing's changing, because a lot of times if you really, really watch what they're doing and really listening to what they're saying and focus and get all the details, they're not following it that good. They might be eating a plant-based diet, but they're cheating. They're eating a lot of little things in there. So, and if you're losing weight as well, like all of this works in synergy, because if you're eating this low-fat, low-sodium, high-fiber, plant-based diet, and a lot of times people with high blood pressure, not always, are overweight, you're going to lose any added weight, which also helps that blood pressure to come down. In fact, like I said, this is why I was talking about your doctor. You most definitely want to follow your doctor's, everything they've told you to do, take your medication, but you let your doctor know. You say, hey, I'm taking my diet seriously. I'm eating, in accordance with everything I believe will bring my blood pressure down. And then you might just throw in, and he's going to probably be skeptical, and you might say, Doc, I'm going to need you while I'm doing this to monitor my blood pressure closely and keep an eye on my medication, because sometimes people do that. I was hearing, this is an anecdotal story, but somebody was talking about one of their patients, and they started eating like this, and they went to stand up a couple of times and got kind of dizzy because it worked that fast. So they were lowering their blood pressure they were lowering their blood pressure naturally, plus they were still taking their medication, so they were getting kind of dizzy. So it's just about letting your your doctor know. And you don't make any changes until he looks at you and says, hey, I don't want you to take this anymore. I want you to lower it or whatever. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm going through my notes here too. And also too, oh, here's another one too for you. Here's a food that, especially if you got high blood pressure, it's the one everybody talks about. It's like heroin and it's addictive. Cheese. Cheese. You're insane if you've got blood pressure and you're eating cheese. Cheese is high in fat, but more importantly, it's high in saturated fat. Saturated fat, I'm not even saying or limited or whatever. I would say try to get as much saturated fat out of your diet as possible. So cheese, high in saturated fat, also high in sodium. People don't think of cheese being high sodium, but it's high in sodium. One of the worst foods you can eat. Actually, I think I heard somebody say it was actually the worst food for high blood pressure. Let's see. My notes are kind of scattered here. Oh, also too, watch the plant-based fat as well. And there's two sources that I'm really coming to understand. They're more in, if you're staying away from the packaged stuff, then you're probably not going to have a problem with this. But that is coconut and palm oil. I'm coming to learn, I didn't know this because I don't eat a lot of processed stuff. I don't eat like processed vegan stuff, but in so many of these products, they're putting coconut oil, they're putting palm oil in there to enhance that flavor, and they can still call it vegan, they can still call it plant-based, but it's just full of both palm oil and coconut oil have saturated fat. Yes, it's a plant, but it's saturated fat. Some people have used some sort of, I've heard kind of some weird alchemy about, well, that the coconut's different because it's the, listen, when I go back to Costa Rica, I'm sure I'll eat some coconut, but it'll be very limited and it will be more of a special occasion type thing. Let's see. What have I got down here? Oh, here's another one too. Nitric oxide is really good for your blood pressure, or lowering your blood pressure. So those leafy greens, all those leafy greens, beets greens, chard, everything. But also too for the nitrous oxide, nitrous. Oh God, that's bad. Very, very different. That's a party thing there. Nitric oxide, I meant to say. Beets as well. Beets also have a lot of nitric oxide. So, chop up some beets, put them in your salad, cook some beets, juice some beets. But those beets will help a lot with that as well. I'd heard that in the past before. But this is one that this one might even be easier to get results from than diabetes. And once again, I'm not trying to sit here going, oh, this cures this or that. It just works in accordance what you're already doing medically until you don't need that anymore. And once again, like with the diabetes, you let your doctor be the one to tell you that. But blood pressure, there's always exceptions. There's always going to be an exception. So somebody, I'm sure, is sitting out there right now, that may have done all the right things and still has an issue with their blood pressure. But it's not, and I've even heard people mention, well, genetics. My mother had hypertension, that so and so in the family had hypertension. I'll just leave you with this. When people always talk about the genetics and their mama and their daddy and Aunt Sally and all this kind of stuff too, is I've seen this seems to be a pretty agreed upon percentage here, that our genes themselves count for about 20% of disease or whatever, and it's our lifestyle and it's not just the food. Getting food, getting sunshine, getting exercise, interacting with other people, taking care of our mental health, that all works together. So anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this one today. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Have a beautiful weekend. We'll see. I just kind of, if something comes to me, I might do a video this weekend. So stay tuned. Peace.